Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we have a lot of updates to get through. I apologize if there's noise, people are out and about. We have updates with Lori Vallow, crazy things. Before we get into that, I did want to thank today's sponsor, which is Raycon. Raycon is a company co-founded by Ray J that offers wireless earbuds in a wide range of colors and patterns along with fit options so they're as comfortable as possible. Not only is the sound quality fantastic, but the earbuds start at about half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market. Their newest model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, are their best ones yet, with 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a more compact design that gives you a nice noise isolating fit. It also comes in new fun colors. I personally enjoy the earbuds because they stay in place as I work out, and the noise isolating allows me to enjoy whatever music or podcast I'm listening to without outside distractions. The bottom line is that they sound just as amazing as other top audio brands you know. Go to buyraycon.com/glare or click the link in the description to get 15% off. Thank you again to Raycon for sponsoring this video. The updates are fucking insane. This case is a shit show. What's new? So if you don't know what's been going on, I will link videos below. There's quite a bit to catch up on, but the basic gist is, so there's a mother, her children have gone missing, she's not cooperating with the police, which in and of itself is suspicious, and she's pretty much just been on vacation, which when you have 2 missing children is very bizarre. One quick thing, and there's not much to elaborate on because I've looked through so many articles and there's not really much information, but Lori Vallow's attorneys withdrew from the case. There's no statement as to why they withdrew, so we don't know. People are speculating. My personal opinion, we know I think she's guilty, obviously, but I just think that the lawyers might have come across something that they either can't defend, they don't want to defend, or I don't know. Too many weird things are happening for me to think that she's not saying anything. There's new discovery that's been coming up. Lawyers now decide to leave. Shit's going on and we don't know what it is, but surely something's up. However, the bigger update is via family members. So I'm gonna put a chart on the screen because there are gonna be a lot of people mentioned here and I want you to just get an idea. Kind of like in books when there are a billion characters and you're like, who the fuck is that one again? Let's just go through who's who for a second here. So this is from the East Idaho News. Lori Vallow, our main character, Chad Daybell, her 5th husband. So now new people that are coming in. There's Melanie Boudreau Pawlowski, which is Lori's niece. Melanie was married to Brandon Boudreau before he filed for divorce last year. So Brandon Boudreau is only related to Lori Vallow via Melanie. Then there's Ian Pawlowski, who Melanie married shortly after she divorced with Brandon. And then there's Alex Cox, who is Lori Daybell's brother, who I've mentioned before, who died suspiciously in December. Cox killed Lori's 4th husband. One main thing that has been suspicious about Lori Vallow are her bizarre religious beliefs, like thinking she's the second coming of Christ and so forth. So that's one aspect that we're delving into today. So the first thing we're going to discuss are details that Ian Pawlowski, so Melanie's new husband. So it says, the most alarming details come from what Ian allegedly told his attorneys after meeting with law enforcement officers last fall. The filing does not detail how Boudreau obtained the document, but 3 sources tell EastIdahoNews.com they came from Pawlowski's computer. In the filing, Ian explains religious beliefs that Melanie allegedly shared with him early on in their relationship in the fall of 2019. One subject was zombies, meaning human bodies that have had their original spirits forced from them and have been possessed by either a demon, disembodied spirit, or a worm/slug. I'm gonna tell you right now, a lot of this stuff sounds straight up out of Dungeons and Dragons, and when I say that, the article literally says that, so just hold on to your wigs because it's a bumpy ride. Spirits can be pushed from their bodies during traumatic events or deadly injury. Spirits pushed out are trapped in limbo as the body they're tied to is still living but cannot be occupied by them anymore, Ian allegedly wrote. The document describes the quote-unquote dark church, with Cain being the first quote-unquote dark being to be translated. Cain walks the earth with 50 dark translated beings to prevent/delay the Lord's second coming, Ian allegedly wrote, mentioning that 2 police investigators assigned to the Lori Daybell case are quote-unquote dark beings. After Melanie told Ian about these and other beliefs, he reportedly wrote that he tried to keep an open mind. These ideas seemed harmless at first, as she sounded pretty certain of some of them. She talked about how she'd learned some of these things in the temple and others from Chad Daybell and Lori. Ian says when he first met Chad and Lori, he didn't get a bad impression, but they seemed quote-unquote different. He describes learning of these new religious beliefs as fun and exciting ideas, but many of them felt like they were ripped straight out of a Dungeons & Dragons manual. So let's pause here for a second because I feel like there's such an overload of information. So part of what makes Lori Vallow suspicious, aside from the fact that she's not helping the police look for her missing children, are her religious beliefs that are esoteric, to say the least. So between thinking she's the second coming of Christ, now we can maybe think that she believes this zombie dark beings thing as well. It's concerning because it makes me think, did she delude herself into thinking that maybe one or both of her kids were dark beings, or maybe they were zombies that needed to be eradicated? That's where my brain is going right now. Of course, we don't know, so that's just what I was thinking when I heard this. Ian admits he and Melanie married faster than any sane couple would, but they both felt it was right. On their wedding night, Melanie began to express concerns about her children. She explained zombies and her fears about what Chad and Lori stated concerning the original spirits being caught in limbo until the body's death, Ian allegedly wrote. She stated that Brandon had been possessed by a demon or another dark entity sometime after June of this year. She was told either through revelation or by Chad that something needed to happen to Boudreaux in order for his spirit to progress and for the Lord's plan to continue. She didn't take well the idea of her husband dying as a part of the Lord's plan, but didn't think action would be taken by anyone. Ian allegedly states that things became concerning when Melanie shared the idea that Chad and Lori could have directed Alex Cox, to take a shot at Brandon, but it wasn't anything she was sure about. Let's recapitulate. So essentially, it seems like, if I'm understanding this correctly, when people are zombies or dark beings, they're no longer who they were, and the only way they can return to who they were is if they die, so then they don't get in the way of the Lord's plan. I think that's what the logic here is, if you want to call it that. The idea would be that Boudreaux would have to die in order for everything to be in balance again. See, now that's what concerns me about the kids, because who's not to say that Chad and Lori thought that about the kids as well? And here, it seems like Lori, in terms of Melanie, has taken a position almost of mentor of sorts, religious mentor. And then also, let's be clear that Melanie shared the idea that Chad and Lori could have directed Alex to take a shot at Brandon. So she genuinely voiced that Lori's brother could shoot Brandon Boudreaux. Like, that's an actual discussion that is being had, or that she's mulling over in her head. In the filing, Ian allegedly writes that he and Melanie began discussing JJ and Tylee. At this point, only JJ was considered missing, and Ian writes that Melanie had been told by Chad and Lori that their children had been possessed and had become zombies. Do you see why I was worried? Do you see in what direction this is going? If they've deluded themselves, or if they've found a thing that they can project on their children and be like, oh, okay, well, the only way that we're gonna save them is by killing them, the more I find out, the less hope I have in any of this. She shared concerns that she's been told Brandon needed to die, and that may indicate that Tylee and JJ needed to die as well, Ian allegedly wrote. She told me she was worried that Al may have had to quote-unquote take care of the kids. She explained that Al had great faith and never wavered in his trust in the Lord. No task would be too difficult or too great for him. Ian became severely worried about what he was hearing and spent days trying to reassure himself that everything was fine according to the court documents. In the meantime, Ian's ex-wife had reached out to Boudreaux, and he told her Melanie was in a cult and that she had tried to have him killed. Ian's ex-wife contacted him and expressed her concerns. According to court documents, she said she was going to meet with police, and Ian agreed to go with her. What I shared with police were the ideas that Chad, Lori, and Alex may have planned shooting at Brandon, and that Tylee and JJ may be in serious danger if Melanie's fears have any validity, Ian allegedly wrote. If shooting at Brandon was indeed based on the idea that he was no longer actually Brandon and needed to die as part of the Lord's plan, then the kids' lives could be forfeited based on the idea that they're not really Tylee and JJ anymore. Ian shared other details, said he would cooperate with the police, and allowed them to pull data from his phone. He met with officers the next day and they gave him a recording device to put on his keychain. My plan was to record anything I thought could help locate Tylee and JJ, locate Chad and Lori, and understand what happened when Brandon was shot at, Ian wrote. If I thought Chad and Lori were going to be calling, I'd turn on the recorder and just let it run until they'd hung up. So let's remember that Brandon Boudreaux was actually shot at in a drive-by shooting, and luckily the bullet missed his head, but an attempt was actually made to kill him. Whether we want to believe that it's related to Lori, Melanie, and Chad, I think it's a very, very interesting coincidence. And do I think it's related? Obviously, yes, I do think it's related. Ian says nothing substantial was ever recorded with Chad and Lori because they never talked about the missing children. On December 19th, police searched Alex Cox's Rexburg townhouse, and Ian says he admitted to Melanie that he had spoken with officers. I didn't know how she would react, but I couldn't hang on to the stress anymore. Of course she was hurt, feeling betrayed, but she reassured me that she loves me and she understands why I did it, Ian allegedly wrote. Now, I also have to say, I think it's interesting that Lori never speaks of the missing children. I can't imagine what mother would not be entirely obsessed with finding her missing children. So to not speak of them at all and not cooperate with police? Come on. Ian and Melanie Pawlowski's attorney tells EastIdahoNews.com that Melanie does not believe the religious beliefs she told her new husband about. Rather, she was just informing him of the ideas. Smith says he's working to discover the truth of the new filing with the same degree of skepticism we've had with everything else Brandon has filed in this case. Melanie has no knowledge of who shot at Brandon. She has no information of who did it and does not profess to, Smith says. She absolutely does not know where JJ and Tylee are. She's done 3 interviews with the FBI, and she would be in deep waters if she lied to them about that. She's like everybody else. She would love to know where those kids are and hopes they are safe. In all of this, I have to say, Brandon Boudreaux would probably be the person to trust in the sense of they tried to shoot him, so he's an enemy of sorts. So if anything, I feel like if they tried to shoot him, let alone their whole thing of like zombies and dark beings, but aside from that, there would be a very pragmatic reason to get rid of someone, which would be they know too much. And Brandon seems to know quite a bit. The fact that Melanie's lawyer has had to kind of say she doesn't believe all the things that have been outed about her in religion. She doesn't believe that. To me, that kind of says, yeah, maybe she doesn't believe it. Who knows? But it's also like Brandon seems to be very aware of a lot that they probably don't want the public to know. I genuinely would not be surprised if it turns out that the quote-unquote reason that Vallow killed her children was because of this belief of zombies and dark beings. So, a few days have passed since the last update, but something else has come to light, and I think we should discuss it because the coincidence, and when I say coincidence, it's not at all a fucking coincidence, but let's get into it. So there's an article that's titled, What an Amazon Order Reveals About Lori Daybell's Wedding Ring. So I'm gonna skip the majority of the article because it's summarizing things we already know. But then it says, Lori married Chad Daybell on November 5th, 2019 in Hawaii, less than 3 weeks after Chad's 49-year-old wife, Tammy Daybell, suddenly died in her sleep. Wedding photos obtained by Fox 10 Phoenix show Chad and Lori on the beach laughing and holding each other. One picture displays the wedding ring on Lori's hand. EastIdahoNews.com has learned the ring, a size 4 sterling southwestern blah blah blah, who cares, was purchased on Amazon for $35.99 on October 2nd, 2019, 17 days before Tammy Daybell passed away. A screenshot of the order, verified by 3 people close to the investigation, shows the ring was delivered on October 7th to the townhome where Lori was staying on Pioneer Road in Rexburg. The name on the order was Charles Vallow, Lori's husband, who had been shot and killed by her brother, Alex Cox, nearly 3 months earlier. Sources say Lori continued to use Vallow's Amazon account after he died. So why does all this matter? Well, a website history on the computer from which the ring was ordered also showed someone searching for wedding dresses the next day, according to sources close to the investigation. October 2nd is a significant date in the case because it's the same day surveillance footage shows Lori and a man believed to be Chad Daybell visiting Self Storage Plus in Rexburg. The couple was seen dropping off a tire and a rear car seat around 2:30 p.m. Brandon Boudreaux, the ex-husband of Lori Daybell's niece, Melanie Pawlowski, was also shot at the same day in Arizona. Rich Robertson, a private investigator hired by Boudreaux, believes Cox was the shooter. Cox suddenly died 2 months later, and autopsy results have not been released. This information is interesting because it makes it seem like there is an amount of premeditation for her to order the wedding ring the same day that then she was dropping off all this stuff at the self-storage. And let's remember, I'll link the video where I talk about everything in the self-storage, but a lot of the things that were dropped off at the self-storage were things that belonged to her children, which wouldn't necessarily be weird if you were helping in the investigation to find them. But the fact that you buy a ring shortly after your own ex-husband passed and shortly before the ex-wife of your new husband passed, it's weird. And I think the only thing that this really reminds me of is how people die around this couple. Like, this entire article update has 3 people, yeah, 3 people who died out of nowhere under mysterious circumstances, plus Brandon Boudreaux, who would have died had the bullet not missed his head from a few inches. So the fact that now we know about this Amazon order, get the ring, drop off at self-storage, next day you're looking for wedding dresses, all this amidst your children being missing. It makes no sense to me. It just seems like a weird time to choose to do all that. I don't know. You guys can let me know if you think the Amazon thing is a big deal or not in your minds. I know I already think she's guilty, so like the Amazon thing only solidifies that none of the things happening here are coincidences. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments down below.